What up, what up? Welcome on in to Inside Baylor Sports, the official daily podcast of Baylor Athletics. On today's show, we recap the Sweet 16 game featuring your Baylor women's basketball team against number 1 seed USC. We'll hear from Nicki Collen, Sarah Andrews, and Jada Walker. All that and more coming up on the show. Don't forget, you can catch Inside Baylor Sports every weekday. You can also watch the video version for free over at BaylorPlus.com and on the Baylor Athletics YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, rate, and review the pod. And follow Baylor Plus today on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. It's the official content network of Baylor Athletics. Think Netflix for your Baylor Bears. Download the app on your mobile device and sign up for your free 7-day trial today at BaylorPlus.com. It's Monday, April 1st, 2024. Justin Hoff alongside the Baylor Bear insider Jerry Hill. April Fool's Day. There's a lot of jokes on social media. I saw Duke has got the blue turf, thinking they're Boise State. I don't really prescribe to all the April Fool's Day stuff, but Easter weekend, it was a fun time, certainly. But Baylor, let's jump into the women's basketball team and their game against USC. A nail-biter, Jerry, you could say. Came down to the last minute, 74-70 victory for the Trojans. Your thoughts, your takeaways from this game?
Yeah, I thought Baylor played really well. Just to be in that spot where you had a chance there at the end, it was, I'm not going to say it was in your hands, but you had a chance there late. I'm never going to blame the officials for everything. I did think they blew the call with about 29 seconds to go. I think it should have been Baylor's ball out of bounds, down 2. Instead, they got it, and Watkins was fouled and went to the line and shot 2 to make it a 2-possession game. That being said, I thought Baylor played really, really well to get to that point again where they had a chance. They got it back within 1 again. So, kudos to Nicki and this whole team for what they were able to do this year and taking a USC team down to the wire. That I think that's a really good USC team. Juju Watkins gets a lot of hype, and rightfully so. I think she's one of the best players in the country, and obviously her scoring and everything. But they've got other players on that team. I thought this was just a really good game. If you were looking at it from just an impartial observer point of view, I thought it was just a really well-played game that, again, came right down to the wire.
Baylor certainly held their own. Here's Nicki Collen after the game.
Thought it was a really great game. The lead changes, the runs. I thought, when you look at the box score, I thought we did a lot of things really well. We won almost every statistical category except free throws, both taken and made. So clearly the difference in the game was the foul line. But I thought these guys battled like crazy against Juju, made her inefficient, made her make tough shots, take tough shots, make tough shots. I thought at the beginning of the game, our transition D, our squeezing wasn't great, and I thought it got better as the game went along. I thought we made a few mistakes, but I think there's always going to be game slippage in a moment this big, and I thought they got a heavy dose of Baylor basketball in the second half. I thought we looked the moment was a little big for us in the first half, and then I thought we really settled down and played really good basketball in the second half. Thought the ball was moving, the ball had energy. I thought we were battling at the defensive end, to out-rebound a team that has more size than us at absolutely every position. I thought we were relentless on the boards. I thought, 1 rebound there with 5 seconds to go on the shot clock and 29 seconds in the game. I think if that's a two-point game and we run the same play to get Sarah 3 that we saved in our back pocket all season, we may be on the winning side of this.
Coach is really good at summarizing things. She did some TV work in the past, and you can tell that, she can illustrate a game. There's no coach, I think, in the women's basketball game that's got as much knowledge and talking just basketball. I mean, you could just talk to Nicki Collen about basketball all day and her X's and O's and everything she did kind of out of timeouts. You saw the play with Sarah Andrews, the bank 3, setting up a wide open look there. But, Jerry, a lot to be proud of with this team. I'll say, too, USC, man, Juju Watkins, 28 shots. She averages 22 on the season. She got up 28 attempts. And as Nicki said, the foul line was a discrepancy. And we've seen this throughout the tournament, really. And if you watch some NBA games, you know that the players, the stars, they get star treatment. Okay. They get the calls. And we've seen a little bit of that throughout the tournament, whether it's, Angel Reese, whether it's Caitlin Clark, certainly on her, Juju Watkins. They're just getting more calls, more times at the foul line. And that's something that we'll have to keep watching. I mean, it's frustrating at times to see that, no doubt, especially if you're going up against that. But Juju Watkins got to the line a lot. 13 times in this game, basically as many times as Baylor got to the free throw line as a team. She got to the line. So just one of those things you got to battle through. But I think Baylor had an opportunity in this game, and a lot you can take away from this game for Baylor moving forward. And in a lot of respects, Jerry, you have to go through games like this and lose them. The coaches, I don't care what sport it is, they always say you learn more from losses, and teams learn from more losses. So this team, I think, can take a lot away from this and build towards next season, as they have an opportunity, Jerry, to return 4 of 5 starters in 24-25. And if you do that and you go out and get yourself maybe a transfer center that's 6'3", 6'4", Queen Egbo 2.0, this team could be top 10 next year.
I agree. I think it could be it's set up to be a really good team. I do think, last year you lose to UConn on their floor in that second round. You take a step this year. You beat Virginia Tech on their floor, get to the Sweet 16. I thought that was a big key for this team, Justin, is getting back to that Sweet 16, 16th time overall, but first time under Nicki Collen in her 3-year tenure. So I think that was a big step. But like you said, now they've lost in that round. Can they take that next step and maybe a couple of steps next year with, a good experienced team returning? And like you said, if you add a couple of key pieces, this team could be really good. One thing I liked seeing in the NCAA tournament is Jada Walker really stepping up, and she's good at that pull-up jumper. I don't think we saw enough of that this year, and maybe it was a lack of confidence thing, but man, when in that Virginia Tech game, and then she followed it up, with a good game against USC as well. So, you add her to, Sarah Andrews, the game that she had here, 5 3-pointers, season high 5 3-pointers for her, and her coming back. So you got both of that backcourt, duo back. And then if you get Bugs and Fauntleroy back, I mean, that's a great core there. And like you said, if you can go get a, really good center out of the transfer portal, you got Madison Bartley coming back potentially. So this could be a really good team next year. I think it'll be, could be a preseason like top 10 team coming back next year.
Here's Sarah Andrews on the season.
Honestly, I think we shocked a lot of people. Nobody thought that we would be here. We started out 13-0. We hit adversity once we got into the conference, and then hit adversity at the Big 12 tournament. But I think overall, we grew in a way that nobody would ever believe. We became tighter, became sisters. I think you saw in the last game, like in moments where we would have turned the ball over late in the game, we thugged it out against Virginia Tech. Jada came down the stretch and made big plays. Yaya, Bugs. I mean, I could just go on and on about this team. And I think, that's the main reason why I'm coming back next year, is because, to play with a group like this, it was a great year.
And here's Jada Walker, obviously was special the last 2 games of the season. Here's her thoughts on the turnaround.
Definitely our fight. I really enjoy how much this team fights on and off the court, but especially in big moments, we really fought in this game. I know calls weren't going our way, but we continued to fight. We got down 1, took the lead, lost the lead, took the lead. It's a game of runs, so we went on 1. We tried to the end. But for me, personally, I feel like I had a great turnaround from the beginning of the season to now, just hitting shots, being more confident in myself, not turning the ball over as much, and really just watching Sarah, how she leads, and trying to take on that role more and more as we go on in the season. So proud.
Yeah, a lot to be proud of. A great step in the right direction for this program this year. And, 7 top 25 wins, the most in the Big 12, 2 top 5 wins, second best start in program history at 14-0, 11-0, undefeated non-conference. You mentioned Walker, Andrews, the backcourt, Fauntleroy, Little Page, Bugs in that front court. And then, as we talked about, a center. And you got some really good pieces, too, coming off the bench. And maybe you can add to that as well. There's just a lot to be excited about. But also excited to, if you take a look at next year, and I believe in coincidences sometimes, but the Final Four next year going to be held in Tampa, Florida, at the Amalie Arena, home of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know last time we were there, Jerry, 2019, the Final Four, the road to Tampa begins now, but we cut down the nets last time there.
I like that. A little bit, that would be, kind of full circle. And wouldn't it be nice to get back there with Nicki and with this team and with, again, a chance to cut down nets? I don't put anything past this team. Like you said, if you can add just a couple of pieces, I think this could be a really good team. Obviously you lose, Dre and Asia, but man, a lot of core pieces back. And this is a team that I think could make a deep run in the NCAA tournament next year.
Building blocks, right? Building blocks. You take steps towards the future, and this team is taking great steps. And you think about the Foster Pavilion, they're going to be in that the whole year. They'll be able to practice out of that. I expect this team to play better basketball at home next year, have a chance to go undefeated at home. You think about the Big 12 Conference, some teams shuffling out, Texas and Oklahoma out, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado in. It will not be easy to win the Big 12, but you think about this team and NIL, transfer portal, there's a lot to be decided in the offseason on what this team looks like, all, 13 to 15 players. But I think by the time they lace them up next fall, this will be a contender, no doubt about it. So looking forward to that, Jerry. And Jerry, it's been exciting, this women's basketball tournament. You think about the regionals, the games, everything that's going on in the women's basketball space. It's a lot of excitement. And we got a couple more games tonight. In women's basketball, you think about USC taking on UConn. That's the nightcap. The first game, though, is LSU versus Iowa, and they're playing in the Elite Eight. We know what happened last time in the national championship game. This game averaged 9.9 million viewers. The rematch, the stars, the personalities, everything that's going on. This, in my opinion, will be the most watched women's basketball game of all time, even at the Elite Eight, right? I think it will jump over 10 million, and I think it's going to be a nail-biter. It's interesting that the committee put these two teams together in the same bracket, almost saying, like, we want to make sure they play, and the referees have kind of, helped along the way, I would say, because some of the star treatment and the foul shooting and all that. But I think it's going to be a nail-biter, and if Iowa can get help from the others, if they can get help from their other players, I think that Iowa will pull this off, but I think it's going to be a nail-biter.
Yeah, and I hate, it's hard going against Kim Mulkey because she's got so much success in the NCAA tournament. But is it any easier to go against Caitlin Clark? I just think she's been kind of the story of women's basketball this year, as good as Juju Watkins has been, as good as, some of the other freshmen, Madison Booker has been, Paige Beckers with UConn. There's been a lot of other good players. Caitlin Clark has been the story. And like you said, if it's a case where and I hope the refs have nothing to do with this game, but if they do, I think most people would say you want Caitlin Clark in the Final Four and you want Caitlin Clark in the championship game, potentially against South Carolina. So I just, to me, it's hard for me to go against Iowa. So I'm going to go with Iowa, but it will not surprise me a bit if LSU pulls it off. Because remember, this is the defending national champion. So everything goes through them. And they've struggled at times in their NCAA tournament run so far. But this is the type of game, that Kim will obviously really get up for. The Tigers will really get up for. Should be a great game. Like you said, should be one of the most watched, if not the most watched women's basketball game of all time. But I'm saying Iowa in the Final Four.
Yeah, Iowa's going to have to make shots. They missed some shots. They don't hit enough threes. They're going to lose this game. I would say my confidence level right now is 51% Iowa, 49% LSU. I think it's going to be super tight. Flau'jae Johnson, Michaela Williams, Angel Reese. I mean, really good team there for LSU. But I think Caitlin Clark is probably going to get a favorable whistle. And once again, I think that's not necessarily a good thing. Okay, I wish, as you said, Jerry, the refs just call it fair. And honestly, just let them play, right? The less fouls, the better. But Iowa and Hannah Stalkey and a few others on that team, I think it's going to be a great game. It'll be fun. 6:00 tonight. And then at 8:00, UConn versus USC out in Portland. And hope they fix those 3-point line distances. That was something else. I mean, good grief. I how does that happen? And it went for a couple games. I did not watch our game live, the Baylor game. I was at a wedding. Okay, had to watch it the next day. And I noticed something. I watched in the morning before this all broke. Something was off, right? I was like, is this really? I thought I was seeing things. Like, there's no way this absolutely could happen. But, yes, Baylor did shoot better from the three-point line in the second half when they were shooting on the real distance, 22 and, 2 inches. But USC versus UConn. Jerry, before we get into that, your thoughts on that three-point distance?
Again, I don't know how that even happens. This is the NCAA tournament. As I had seen a text from John Morris thinking that it was, an April Fool's joke. Well, it wasn't April Fool's, it wasn't April Fool's yet. So it's not an April Fool's joke. This was real. This was a real thing. It happened in the NCAA tournament. It's unbelievable that it could happen in the NCAA tournament, but it did. So now they've got that fixed, everything will be cool. I think for the most part, coaches were, they didn't throw a fit about it. I mean, Nicki could have, but you had, like you said, you had the right distance for one half. The same thing that USC did. USC had it in the first half. Baylor had it in the second half. So I guess it's a little bit of a wash, but again, that should not happen in the NCAA tournament. Shouldn't happen anytime, but certainly not in the NCAA tournament.
No, not at the Division I level, period. It shouldn't happen. It's just a bad look. I don't care if it's men's basketball, women's. It shouldn't matter, and it should not happen. So hopefully they get that fixed up for tonight's game and paint it, not just put tape. I want to see a full paint line out there. So we'll see how it shakes out. But, yeah, UConn versus USC, Paige Beckers, Aaliyah Edwards. UConn's been through this before. A little bit more experienced team than Baylor is. And so I give the edge to UConn, Gina Auriemma. I think it's going to be close as well. I just think USC just maybe a little bit too much dependent on Juju Watkins and just a little too young, haven't been together enough. So I'll give the edge to UConn. But once again, a close game. I also think Juju Watkins will break the freshman record for scoring all time. So that's an award in of itself. But I got UConn maybe by 4.
Well, and I'm going to go. This is hard to do because, you think about it. In these two games, I think you have two of the best women's basketball coaches of all time in Kim Mulkey and Gina Auriemma. And I'm going against them both. I think USC finds a way to win it. Juju was a little bit off this last game, and maybe it was the 3-point line for her. I don't know. But Baylor's defense did a really good job on her. But I do think, Justin, that they have enough other pieces that they can get through this. Mackenzie Forbes, I was impressed with her. Just some of the other players, Padilla. So I think they've got enough. This has been a UConn team that's been vulnerable most of the year. I mean, they were outside of the top 10 for a while. So this is not your traditional, just unbeatable UConn team. They do still have Gina Auriemma, though. So that gives them the edge. That's what Vegas has. Vegas has them as the favorite. So, but I'm going to go against that. I'm going to go with the top seed. I'm going to go with USC to win and get to the Final Four.
Vegas can be pretty smart. That Baylor USC game, that was 3.5. Yeah, 3.5 point favorite was USC, and USC won by 4. So it's crazy how those numbers, they've been doing this for a long time. But yeah, USC right now, they're 3.5 point underdog to Connecticut. Iowa, the 1.5 point favorite to LSU. We'll see. 6 o'clock ESPN, LSU versus Iowa. 8 o'clock ESPN, UConn versus USC. Wish those games were at 8:30, 6 and 8. There's a good chance you're going to miss the start of that game. Maybe they'll delay it slightly. That's not good programming there as far as timing.
Yeah, it's very, very seldom do you get, because it would almost have to be like ends at 150 or 145, or 645, that kind of thing. And that's not going to happen. So yeah, you would look for it to be, bumped a little bit, maybe back to 8:15, 8:20. So we'll see. I mean, they'll get it taken care of. I think it'll be a fun night, Justin. This will be two of the better games we'll see in the NCAA tournament. 4 great teams. Any of those are worthy of a Final Four. You've got 2 3 seeds, right, in these games, and 2 1 seeds. Is that right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So 2 3, and technically the 3 seed. Well, Iowa's the 1 seed and they're favored, but I would say almost the 3 seeds are kind of the favorites with Gino and Kim in those roles. So but I do think it'll be great night for women's basketball, really, taking center stage as it has a good bit of this February and March.
Yeah, I think the winner of the LSU Iowa game will play South Carolina in the national championship next Sunday. But a lot to be desired or seen there, and NC State might have something to say about that. And man, NC State's had a great March between both men's and women's basketball. You think about men's basketball, they're in the Final Four first time since 1983. The women's basketball team first time since 1998. They're doing it together. I mean, it's pretty strong. And UConn will have a chance to do the same with a game tonight and with a win. Jerry, wanted to ask you about this. So there's been a lot of talk about this on the women's side. The host sites, the regional sites, of course, they went to host sites. There's differences, right? There's a lot of similarities between the men's and women's basketball game, and then there's distinct differences. And the tournament shows a lot of differences. On the men's side, you have a lot of different regionals, and they go all over the country, right? 8 different sites. And then on the women's side, it's host sites the first 2 rounds. And then starting a couple years ago after the issues in San Antonio, they went to 2 sites for the regionals on the women's side, while the men have 4. So starting with the host sites, Caitlin Bickle is all about making them neutral and having more parity and maybe growing the game of women's basketball. Where do you stand there? Do you like the host sites for the first 2 rounds, or would you like to do something similar to what the men have?
My personal thing is host sites, just because, I think with, the emergence of Caitlin Clark and other players, other stars like that, it's brought more attention to the women's game. So certainly, you have a chance to fill up the gym no matter where you play. But I still think the best way to fill the seats for those first couple of rounds is host sites. I'm in favor of that. I think it can work either way. But what if you show up at a neutral site, with, say, Baylor and Iowa, say, but you're in Seattle? Are they going to fill the gym? I would hope so, but maybe not. So that's my feeling. And I kind of like the kind of almost double regionals, situations that they have now with 2 regionals at the same site. I kind of like that because it gives you a chance to fill up the gyms, when you've got, more teams there and more games. I like that little, difference that they've had. So I like that scenario, but I'm a favorite of the host sites. Those teams have kind of earned it, the top 16. So that would be my pick. I can see it the other way too, but I just don't know if the women's game is there quite yet.
Okay, good. Fair points there. And yeah, so we move past the first and second round. Then there's been a lot of the talk that you spoke of right there, the 2 regional sites. Do you do 2, or do you go back to what it was with 4? Now, if you go 2, you think the experience and everything would be on point. Obviously, they had this issue with the 3-point line, which is, once again, you got to make 2 less courts. You should not have that happen, period. And then you go to the Final Four. The Final Four is in Cleveland. And of course, the Final Four on the men's side is in Phoenix. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But yeah, it's something that is interesting to watch and see how the game evolves and changes and everything like that. Heck, I even heard one that I thought was a little wild, to the point where they were saying take the men's and the women's and have them all at the same sites. And so the men, have 8 sites, right? And then you alternate the games. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think you got different fan bases on both sides, and I get the part of trying to, weave them in together. But I think the women's tournament's strong enough on its own, so I wouldn't be in favor of that. But, people on X, they start throwing off all sorts of crazy stuff. You know how it is, Jerry.
Yeah, that to me doesn't seem like it would work at all. I can actually remember a day when it was in the Southwest Conference, when the men and women would play double headers, like the women before the men. Again, I didn't think that was good even back then, but certainly not now. And like you said, I think in a lot of places, and it's a little bit here as well, I just think it's almost a different audience. So yeah, I don't think that would be a good scenario. again, I can see some value in it. I like the fact that the women now, play at the same arena as the men in Kansas City. I thought that was a good move. But yeah, having them at the same time and maybe back to back like that, I don't like that idea.
All right, big games tonight. That'll do it for today's edition of Inside Baylor Sports, a Sport and Story production. Thanks for listening. For Jerry Hill, I'm Justin Hoff. Have a great Monday, and sick 'em Bears.
Sick 'em Bears.